All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a spiritual text that's incredibly influential but also really misunderstood a lot of the time, A Course in Miracles. So our goal here is to just walk through its big story, and unpack the core ideas that have grabbed so many people. Let's get into it.
You could almost boil the entire 1,000-page book down to just this one powerful, almost puzzling statement. It's really the key that unlocks everything else. So, what does it even mean? What's real and what's unreal? Well, to figure that out, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning, back to where we came from.
So the Course kicks off its story not here on Earth, but in this state of perfect, total reality it calls heaven. And this isn't just some far-off place. It's our true, original home. This idea is the foundation for, everything that comes next.
To get a feel for what heaven is, we first have to really get the Course's idea of God. A lot of us grew up with this idea of a God who is loving, for sure, but also can get angry, can punish. The Course says, okay, what if you just took that angry, punishing part completely out of the picture? What you're left with is a love that's just expanded to infinity, pure, unconditional, and honestly bigger than we can even wrap our minds around.
To really get your head around that scale, the Course gives us this amazing metaphor. Think about the deepest love you've ever felt, maybe for a parent or your child or a partner. The Course says that feeling, it's like a tiny flickering match. And God's love for you, that's the sun. There's just no comparison in our world.
So, okay, if we were made by a perfect, all-loving God, what does that make us? Well, the Course teaches that you are not this flawed, temporary body you see in the mirror. You are a spiritual extension of God himself, and you share all his qualities: perfection, holiness, strength. So that phrase, I am as God created me, that's not something you're trying to become. The Course says it's a fact about who you already are right now.
Okay, but wait. If our home is perfect and we're perfect, then obviously something seems to have gone very, very wrong. And that brings us to let's call it the inciting incident of this whole story. It's this moment where we all kind of forgot who we were.
This is the big question, right? It's the question of being human. If we started out in a perfect place, how on earth did we end up here, in a world that feels so full of struggle and pain? The Course has a very specific and pretty surprising answer.
This is probably one of the most famous lines in the whole text. This tiny, mad idea was the thought, what if I could be separate from God? What if I could exist on my own? I mean, it was a completely absurd, impossible idea. The only sane thing to do would have been to laugh it off. But instead, we took it seriously. And that one moment of taking it seriously is what gave birth to this whole dream of separation.
And here is another absolutely crucial difference. The traditional story of the fall of man is usually taught as a real thing that happened. But the Course says, no, the separation was only ever a dream. It never actually happened in reality. Why? Because a truly loving father would never ever let his child actually fall and get hurt. It's just not possible.
And that leads to this pretty mind-blowing conclusion about our entire life, our whole experience of being a separate person living in this physical world. The Course says it's nothing more than a bad dream. We're not really exiles. We're safe at home, just dreaming that we're far, far away.
So, if this world is just a dream, what are the rules? What's the logic that runs this place? Well, by believing we were separate, we basically invented a false self, a whole thought system based on fear and survival. The Course has a name for this: the ego.
The ego is basically who you think you are while you're in the dream. It's that voice in your head that's always telling you you're all alone, you're separate from everybody else, and you've got to fight and claw and compete to survive. And according to the Course, that voice, it's the source of all our pain.
And the ego runs on this vicious, nasty little loop that just goes round and round. It starts with anger, which then spills out as an attack on someone else. Then we look at what we did and judge it as this terrible, unforgivable sin. That makes us feel this deep, heavy guilt, often buried way down. And because we feel guilty, we start to believe we deserve to be punished. And that right there leads to living in constant fear of that punishment. This whole cycle is the engine that keeps the nightmare going.
But, and this is a huge but, we're not just left here to suffer in this nightmare alone. The Course is very clear that even inside the dream, we have a guide and we have a map, something to lead us back home and help us wake up.
So the Course itself is like the map, but our personal guide, that's the Holy Spirit. And the thing is, in the Course, the Holy Spirit isn't some force way out there. It's described as the voice for God that's still right here. in your own mind. It's like your own internal teacher, your own therapist, the part of you that never forgot the truth and knows the way out of the maze.
The Course also gives us a different way to look at Jesus. Here, he's not presented as some divine figure who is fundamentally different from us. He's presented as our equal, an elder brother. He's just one of us who already woke up from the dream, and now he's standing by, ready to help us make the same choice he did.
So, we have a guide. What do we actually do? What's the master key that unlocks the whole thing? The Course is absolutely crystal clear on this. The practice is forgiveness. But, and this is key, it is a totally different kind of forgiveness from what we normally think of.
This is such a radical shift. Normal forgiveness goes something like this. Okay, what you did to me was real, it was wrong, it hurt me, but I'm going to be the bigger person and pardon you. ACIM forgiveness says, wait a minute, what I thought you did, it was part of the illusion. It was a mistake. My anger was based on a dream. See the difference? It's not about pardoning a real sin. It's about realizing the sin was never real to begin with.
So what this really means is that forgiveness is a total inside job. Your work isn't to go out and find love or get other people to change. Your only job, your only task, is to look inside yourself and just start taking down the walls, the judgments, the grievances that you've built up against the love that is already there, that's always been there.
And when we really get the hang of this practice, when we master this kind of forgiveness, where does it take us? Well, it takes us to the final stages of the journey home. It leads to a complete flip in how we see everything. And in the end, to waking up.
So the path looks like this. First, you practice forgiveness over and over. This leads you to what the Course calls true vision, where you start to see the light, the holiness in everyone, no matter what they seem to be doing. That vision lets you experience the real world, which is a state of just pure joy. And once you get there, your job is actually done. God himself takes the final step and just lifts you out of the dream, back into full awareness of heaven.
And notice how the Course totally flips the script on what we mean by the real world. We usually say that to mean, face facts, life is hard. But here, the real world is the world finally seen correctly through the eyes of love. It's a place of incredible joy and safety and giving that's just reflecting the peace you found in your own mind.
This paints a picture of the very end of the journey. In the Course, the end of the world isn't some violent, fiery apocalypse. It's a moment of quiet, collective readiness, a silent, joyful waiting when all the little separations have been healed through forgiveness, and we're all just waiting together for God to say, welcome home.
So let's end with this one last question, because this really gets to the core of the whole practice. What if every single attack, every mean comment, every grievance you see out there isn't actually an attack at all? What if, underneath it all, it's just a terrified, mistaken call for the very love that you, through your forgiveness, can give? I mean, if that's true, well, that changes everything, doesn't it? Thank you for joining this Explain.